Thank you for joining us today. Today, we welcome three experts in innovation and standardization to speak with us about their journeys to digitize, enhance, and deliver standards to customers in new and technology-driven ways. Standards developing organizations have long provided standards in paper, captured in volumes and journals for their users. However, paper can become difficult and burdensome for some users. Examples include users who need information from multiple standards, need to search standards to identify the information they are looking for, or need ready access while out in the field or job site. The changing needs of customers has led to innovations in standardization, and we look forward to exploring some of those changes with our guests today. Today, we welcome Beth Ellen Dibeler. Beth Ellen is a product manager at SAE International. Beth Ellen is responsible for the digital standards system OnQue, standards product line, and Edge research reports. As product manager, she is responsible for product development, implementation, and commercialization of the different product lines. Suzanne Daulerio has 15 years experience as a product manager at ACM International, a standards development organization in West Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. Suzanne is responsible for product planning and execution for a variety of ASTM products and services designed for the consumers of ASTM member benefits, tools, content, software services, and other technologies. Vandana Sharma is Director of Business Development at InfoBeans, and through her work, she has helped startups and enterprises engage with the customers better. With the help of her team, Vandana supports customers as they discover software solutions to address their customers' needs. So welcome all three of you today. Appreciate you attending and participating in this event. And maybe as a kickoff, I have a question for Beth Ellen. Beth Ellen, at SAE International, you are responsible for the digital standards system OnQue. Can you tell us more about the application and how SAE International worked with customers and their input to develop this tool?
Sure. Thank you, Karen, for having us today too. So OnQue, what we did is it's our digital standards system, and we went into industry and we were hearing from them that they wanted to integrate our standards into their product workflow. So they were having issues with transcription errors or accuracy errors and copyright issues. So what SAE did is, working with industry, we've gone through and we've digitized and created a structural database within that houses all the information within the standard. So then the information within the database can be queried against, or you can implement that into your workflow directly, just flowing into to be able to use in different manners rather than just copying and pasting from a PDF or, copying it hand in hand to put into the different systems. So a lot of it was going out to industry and hearing their needs and then figuring out a way how they want to move forward. How can we support them in that effort?
Mm-hmm. And Suzanne, at ASTM International, you've overseen a number of software and data transitions to help ASTM customers better search and access the ASTM standards. Can you tell us about a recent project or a little about how you at ASTM approach digital transitions?
Thanks, Karen. Yes. So ASTM has come a long way since the inception of PDF red lines, which was one of our first digital transitions. Our approach, much like SAE, is to have early interactions with all our constituents to understand, for instance, how diversity and inclusion needs may apply, or understanding how millennials want to work. We also use a design thinking technique, which minimizes the risks of innovation by engaging customers or users through a series of prototypes so that we can learn, test, and refine our concepts. And while product managers are also on the road more to meet with our members and customers and discuss their digital content needs, we continue to lean heavily on concepts discovered by our sales team and other internal stakeholders. So with all of this data, we created a Voice of the Customer program, which led to in-house product advisory councils, which were made up of our customers and members. And then a recent project, which we call ASTM 360, relies on analytics, where people click, and on usage reports from our IT department and Google Analytics. So we continue to approach digital transitions by observing how people interact with our website and platforms, and even specific search terms they use. We even recently hired someone to help us slice and dice those analytics so that we can get a clearer picture of how our customers and members use our tools.
Mm-hmm. And Vandana, you are no stranger to digitalization, with InfoBeans being a provider of digital solutions to the standardization market. When a standards developer organization is considering a digital transformation, what do you recommend they consider, or what questions would you recommend they ask themselves?
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for having me here. Just like Suzanne said, you know, where are the customers? What do they want? Where are they hanging at? That is what is the first question to ask. So having been part of a lot of digital transformation journeys, that's what I see. Benchmarking yourself against that question is the start, and then assessing your maturity level against that benchmark. Where are you in terms of the people, process, and technology as an organization? What is the appetite to innovate? Sometimes small innovations is also relevant, and that is still an innovation. And if the desired outcome is de-risked by early validation, then that tells you that you're on the right path. Then comes the prioritization. How do you define what is short-term and long-term wins? That's another thing to really look forward to in terms of really starting into that path of digital transformation, bringing focus to the problem. What is the impact if not solved, and what is true when it is solved? There's so many things and mini decisions and big decisions as we approach a digital transformation roadmap. And we try to get some early wins as we kick off projects, so to gain confidence and to see some results early on. And then we move as one team towards one goal with our partners.
Yeah, and so I hear all three of you kind of mentioning across your responses this need to not only decide what your organization wants to do and the risk associated with that, how far they want to dive into this, but also understanding what the customers or the users of the standards are desiring out of it. I think, Suzanne, you mentioned having committees and looking for clicks and really diving into how your users are using the standards. Beth Ellen, you indicated that as well. And I'm curious, did you send like surveys out to your membership? Did you do one-on-ones with them? Like, how did everyone go about kind of exploring what that use case for the customer was?
Sure. So I know with SE, when we were doing this, a lot of it was going customer visits. I mean, the way that you're really going to hear what your customer needs and how you can support them is by actually going to visit, hearing the voice of the customer, and also understanding their workflow. So being in their organization. And one of the struggles, even being working from home, is you're not able to do that right now too. So, it's one of the struggles with that we've noticed is going in and actually being able to hear that, or getting in front of the customers to help them implement or show, what you can do and hear what they're looking for.
What are your thoughts, Suzanne? Any additions you wanted to throw in? How do you feel about customer surveys, or did you feel those analytics and that machine learning that you used was the best kind of approach?
I think it's probably a combination of both, Karen, with analytics and with surveys. And I think what ASTM is finding is most organizations need to have a good benchmark, a good foundation for where their customers are at any point in time. So you can't survey in 2017 and then not survey again until 2022 or 2021. It has to be pretty consistent, and maybe you're just using a portion of your constituents. But I think that over time, you'll see a pattern and a trend for, what part of your technology they really like and use a lot, and then what part of the technology they're just not sold on yet. And some of that is just a continuous circular conversation that you need to have with customers and members about, or you need a champion within their organization to talk to them about new technology and how to use it. So I think that surveys are great tutorials and webinars to talk about your products and how they work. And I think that, as Beth was saying, getting out there and see how to use standards in their work environment is the best way to do it. That has, at this point, we're just sort of trying to continue to do that virtually.
And Vandana, with your experience with a lot of different organizations, do you see them taking similar approaches? Is there a method that we haven't mentioned yet that you would throw out as an example of something to try?
So what we do is, it again depends upon what exactly are we talking about. Like if it is a product that is yet to be launched, then there's a different approach. That if it is something that already is launched, and then you're trying to find out what is being used and what is not being used, and there's a different approach, right? So when it is something that is yet to be launched, what we deploy is something called experiment-driven design methodology, where we only build what we think is necessary, and then we test it out. We actually build something, code something very quick and clickable in the matter of weeks, and then put it out in the front. So we say that we learn by making is how we do it. And then what their activity is, what we collect, and that is like real data. And then we work on it. If we iterate or we keep it like that, or what's the next step, that learning comes, and that's how we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way that we do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and such a good idea. And that it reminds me of what Suzanne talked about with the clicks, measuring where they're looking and what they're using. When you did your digitalization projects, Beth Ellen and Suzanne, did you do a test case? Like, did you get a group of customers to try out the tool that you were creating to let you know if you were headed in the right direction?
Yeah, we did beta testing in terms of going out to the customer, letting them use it, getting feedback, which is very important. You know, what were things that they liked? What were things that they struggled with? Also in terms of like a UX perspective too, you know, making sure it makes sense. The other thing is, when we looked at digitizing the standards, which ones did we focus on first? You know, and on what Suzanne said, standards that are used the most make the most sense to, you know, work your way through. So at SAE, we have so many standards, so it would be very difficult to do all of them all at once. So how do you pick which ones initially you're using to digitize, which ones, what's the use case for that, to implement that, and then going to those specific customers and users saying, this is what we provided, this is our option, what feedback do you have?
Mm-hmm. Well, at this point, oh, sorry, go ahead, Suzanne.
Oh, no, I was just going to say we did something similar. We worked with a design UI UX firm to work with our customers to watch them test, or to give them tests, and just to take that feedback and use that along with our analytics to determine like what would be the simplest change we could make that would make their jobs easier, or make using or accessing the standards easier, and start with that one piece of technology and go from there.
Mm-hmm. Another good one for our attendees, just in case there's any confusion. What is XML and what makes it different from a PDF, as an example? Like, is it used differently? Does it talk to like certain machines? Like what's that big benefit of what an XML is?
Go for it.
You go
Suzanne.
for it. You go for it.
I don't know the full form of it though, not the technical full form of it, but it is highly secure. It is basically, how can I say, a smart document, which is tagged, which is syntaxed.
All the metadata is tagged.
Metadata is tagged into it, and it has a lot of, imagine like tags for everything, that, okay, what is this, what is this, what is this, like lots of labels. So it can be better. The searchability is great. It is also secure. It is also talking to different documents in a particular ecosystem. yeah, it's more live. Let's say it's living and breathing document, and PDF is a static document. So that's the best way for me to say it, understand it.
Mhm.
Mm.
So if I open an XML and I read it, I'm going to see things like body of whatever or header. It's not just going to say the header.
Title, author, date, published by. It'll say whether it's an active version, whether it's a historical version. It'll say, all those things that you might need to use that same document in a different format. You might, as Vandana was saying, pull it into an e-learning program. If it was just a static PDF, someone might have to copy and paste. And actually, from a PDF, someone might actually have to convert it back to a Word document and copy and paste and pull all these sections into a quiz and a glossary and whatnot. Whereas if your standard is in XML, you can write a program that says, pull in, for the introduction of our e-learning program, pull in the scope of the standard, always. Like that's the rule that you're using. And you can do that because your standard is in a format that's friendly to other programs so that you can multi-purpose that content.
That is so neat. And okay, so now we know XML, very cool, comes with instructions so that other software knows what to do with it. So far we've talked about getting ready for a project. How do you conceptualize it? How do you get feedback on what it should include? Approaching it with agile or waterfall, what happens when you're not headed the right direction, you've got to backtrack and try again. Now we're at the end phase. We're going to launch our new program. We've identified the need, we've done all the work, and we're pushing out the tool to our customers. How do you as organizations go about not only presenting the new functionality or the new tool, but getting customers to use it? Like, what type of education do you consider? What kind of marketing or outreach? Like, how can you encourage individuals, especially ones that maybe aren't tech savvy or are afraid of technology maybe? How do you get them to try it?
I'll go first. What we do is we call UX and usability study, and that's what we do. So we release a portion of like the product with a smaller group first. We release with them, we take the feedback, we assess issues, we understand if there's any more requirements that we didn't think about, or can we do some small tweaks to make that experience a little bit better, and opportunities for the next release, even from here to the next step. And then the next iteration is released with a larger group, and that way you gain consensus, you get acceptance easily. So sometimes organizations do beta releases before it comes to the full-on general public. So that's what that is. Yeah, so that's that. And then socializing what is coming up before, ahead of time, as a pre-launch activity. Sometimes organization also launches products with which tie into their annual events. That way they make a big announcement, but then all of that testing and validation has to occur before. And yeah, that's pretty much it. People get their hands on, you make it easy, you make the right content go to the right people, and if it is a good designer, you will get that seamless experience. People are going to use it.
Yeah, I think as I had mentioned before, right, I think being able to introduce the product into market, but having the buy-in. So maybe it's for something that's new and hasn't been done, a small pilot project, or, getting people to actually use it so that they can then advocate for you and understand, all right, well, industry does need this, or we're using this, it's, and supporting it through the supply chain. But definitely creating awareness around the use cases and the value behind it too, of course, as always. But I think just integrating it and helping people use it so that they can advocate for you and they see the value in it themselves.
Mm-hmm. And any lessons learned from a project you rolled out? Did you thought everybody was going to love it, and then you found out that they used it in a way that you weren't expecting?
I think one of the things that we've discovered is just there's more use cases than what you thought, right? So it was designed to solve XYZ, but you're finding out that it's also doing ABC. And so then you're also reaching out, you're seeing other customers that could then use it, right? So then you're expanding actually the market and the opportunity for yourselves.
I'll go with one example that we worked on for a big plumbing and mechanical STO. So we launched an app where they were able to pull the standards and information and collaborate on it as when they were consuming that information. Collaboration can happen in different phases, right? So what we did was pulling it into that app, and we realized that not all the features were very desirable for a lot of these folks. So we understood that fairly quickly and focused on enhancing the 20% of the features that we thought were getting used more. And now the second iteration, we are looking to bring that app to the inspectors and installers on the field so they can access the particular section of a particular standard, and also um, kind of bring it on or refer it to their checklist when they are pushing out the reporting. So the next phase is going to be the inspectors should be able to push out a report from on a checklist inside of their devices in an app, interactive app, and send it out to them. So yeah, learnings and pivoting to what needs to happen and making sure that the team is aware of where we are going as a team, and collaborating heavily with the stakeholders is very, very necessary.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a great way to finish it for our guests, and maybe one last question for all of you. Any final comments or thoughts you'd like to share with our attendees before we end the recording?
I wanted just to comment on Megan's comment in the chat that NFPA has done away with their PDFs. I just wanted to say that as a product manager, having worked for ASTM for 15 years, I was there when NFPA got rid of their CDs, and they were the first to do that. And it was, as you said, it was not only quite, the talk of the industry, but so many of their members, I don't think were very pleased with that decision. So ASTM followed suit to get rid of our CDs. I want to say less than 2 years later. But they were ahead of the curve when it comes to what they're, I think, knowing like what works for them as far as security, knowing what works for their customers as far as access and format that's most comfortable for for their use. And good for them.
I would say that a lot of times, I talk to executives who have such accountability. They have a lot on their shoulders, and they don't know where to start. Right? They want to be ahead in the game. They see that other of their competitors are moving ahead, and it becomes such a daunting effort. And digital transformation itself feels like such a heavy thing to even nibble at. But I have a small suggestion that if we look at, small pieces, there's that elephant story, that don't look at the full elephant, just look at a portion of it, and start somewhere. Start where you think the impact can be felt by your immediate surroundings, and you can assess that impact. Let's start there. And it's just a work, like it doesn't get finished. It's not one day task. It is only like, for example, automating a workflow is only the beginning. From there on, there is amplification, there is augmentation, there's so much more that can make lives better, and the use of technology can really, really, show its magic in our lives. So let's start somewhere. Don't be don't be sitting behind and thinking that how will I do that. So that's my take.
I think just kind of continuing to grow with industry and as figuring out what they're doing and, you know, continuing to make adjustments or move forward. And I think whatever they want, you know, we have to work with them to provide access to them because they're the customers at the end of the day, right? Like, how are they accessing the content? What makes sense? And doing all of those things. So I think that that's kind of moving forward in that sense.
Mhm. Well, wonderful. My thanks to you, Beth Ellen, Vandana, and Suzanne for speaking with us today, and for our participants for joining us for this event on innovation in standards. A big thank you to our